What is the ultimate goal of torture? It is not just to inflict pain. It is to erase a person, to break their spirit, to silence their voice, to make them an example so that no one will dare to follow in their footsteps. It is the ultimate act of power, to make someone disappear from the world and from memory. But what if the opposite were true? What if the most extreme acts of cruelty, the most horrific methods of torture, didn't erase their victims, but instead made them immortal? This is the great paradox of martyrdom. Throughout history, from the arenas of Rome to the execution grounds of the Middle Ages, the most brutal attempts to silence individuals have backfired in the most spectacular way. The breaking wheel, the gridiron, the stake. These were not just instruments of death. They were instruments of transformation. They turned mortal men and women into eternal symbols. Tonight, we explore this dark and fascinating phenomenon. We will investigate the psychological alchemy that turns agony into adoration. We will uncover the stories of the men and women whose torturers, in trying to destroy them, accidentally forged them into legends. This is not a story about the mechanics of pain. It is a story about the mechanics of memory. It is about how the human spirit, when pushed to its absolute limit, can achieve a form of immortality that tyrants can only dream of. Are you ready to discover how the cruelest tortures in history created some of its most enduring figures? Then stay with us. The answer will change the way you think about power, pain, and what it truly means to be immortal. Before we delve into these incredible stories, we want to ask you, which historical figure do you think of when you hear the word martyr? Let us know in the comments below. Let's see which legends have stood the test of time. Our journey begins with an instrument of pure horror, the breaking wheel. Designed to inflict maximum agony, the victim's limbs were systematically shattered with iron bars before being woven into the spokes of the wheel and left to die. It was a machine built to make a person a public spectacle of brokenness and terror. But in the 4th century, this machine met its match in a young woman named Catherine of Alexandria. A brilliant Christian scholar, she was sentenced to death on the wheel for defying the pagan emperor Maxentius. But according to legend, when Catherine touched the wheel, it miraculously shattered. She was then beheaded, but the story of the broken wheel was already spreading. The instrument of her torture became her symbol. The Catherine wheel is now a name for fireworks, for rose windows in cathedrals, and her story has been told for 1,100 years. The wheel didn't break her. She broke the wheel, and in doing so, became immortal. If Catherine broke her instrument of torture, our next figure embraced his with a defiant, almost insane sense of humor. Saint Lawrence was a deacon in 3rd century Rome, ordered to hand over the church's treasures. He responded by gathering the city's poor and declaring, "These are the treasures of the church." For this act of defiance, he was sentenced to be roasted alive on a giant gridiron. It is a death almost too horrific to contemplate. Yet, in the midst of this agony, Lawrence reportedly said to his torturers, "I'm well done on this side. Turn me over." That single sentence, that act of black humor in the face of unimaginable pain, transformed him. He wasn't just a victim, he was a performer. He took control of his own execution narrative. Today, St. Lawrence is the patron saint of cooks, chefs, and comedians. His gridiron is a sacred relic. His joke has been repeated for nearly 2 millennia. His torturers wanted to make him scream. Instead, they made him a legend. These are the stories that reveal the hidden power of the human spirit. To ensure you don't miss our future explorations into the dark corners of history, subscribe to Dark Chronicles and activate the bell of forbidden knowledge. The deeper we go, the more you'll understand. Sometimes, immortality is not achieved in death, but in survival. Saint Sebastian, a Roman soldier and secret Christian, was sentenced to be executed by his own comrades. He was tied to a tree and shot with so many arrows that he was described as looking like a pincushion. He was left for dead. But he didn't die. He was rescued and healed, only to confront the Emperor again, denouncing his cruelty. This time, he was beaten to death. But that's not the part of the story we remember. We remember the arrows. For centuries, artists have been obsessed with this image, the beautiful suffering body, pierced but not broken. Saint Sebastian became a symbol of resilience, a protector against plagues, and, in modern times, a gay icon. The arrows that were meant to kill him became the very things that made his image eternal. They were not instruments of death, but instruments of art. But what if the art is not just in the suffering, but in the very thing that is taken from you? Saint Bartholomew, one of the 12 apostles, was martyred in Armenia by being flayed alive. His skin was peeled from his body while he was still conscious. It is a torture that strips away not just life, but identity itself. Yet, in one of the most powerful and disturbing images in all of Western art, Michelangelo painted Bartholomew in the Sistine Chapel holding his own empty skin, and the face on that skin is a self-portrait of Michelangelo himself. The artist identified with the saint's suffering, seeing in the flayed skin a metaphor for the agony of creation. Bartholomew's torture, the loss of his very surface, became a symbol of revealing a deeper truth, a spiritual essence that lies beneath the flesh. His greatest wound became his greatest glory. Art has been obsessed with these images of martyrdom for centuries. Why do you think we are so drawn to these depictions of beautiful suffering? Is it morbid curiosity, or is there something deeper at play? Share your theories in the comments section. Fire. It is the ultimate tool of purification and destruction. And for centuries, it was the chosen method for executing heretics. To be burned at the stake was to be utterly consumed, to be turned to ash, to be erased from the world. But in 1431, in the marketplace of Rouen, the flames failed. They consumed the body of a 19-year-old girl, but they could not touch her spirit. Joan of Arc, the peasant girl who led an army, was executed for heresy by the English. They wanted to prove she was a witch, a fraud, a nobody. They wanted to turn her into a cautionary tale. Instead, they turned her into France. Her executioner reportedly wept, fearing he was damned for burning a saint. The English soldiers who mocked her were silenced by her courage. Her death did not end the war, it fueled it. The ashes of her fire fertilized the soil of French nationalism. Today she is Saint Joan, the patron saint of France, a symbol of courage and faith recognized across the globe. The English tried to erase her. Instead, they made her eternal. This pattern was not new. It was perfected 200 years earlier in the arenas of Rome. The Roman Empire, the most powerful entity on earth, tried for 3 centuries to extinguish the small flame of Christianity. They threw believers to lions, crucified them, and burned them as human torches. But with every martyr who died in the Colosseum, the Christian faith grew stronger. The Roman historian Tertullian wrote, "The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church." The Romans thought they were putting on a show of power. But the audience saw something else. They saw courage in the face of death, faith in the face of despair. The spectacle of torture backfired. It was the greatest marketing campaign Christianity could have ever wished for. The empire that tried to destroy the faith would eventually adopt it as its own official religion. The victims had conquered the victors. These stories are a testament to the power of belief. If you believe in the importance of exploring these complex historical truths, consider becoming a Dark Chronicles patron. Your support allows us to continue our work. The link is in the description. This video challenges our modern understanding of power. If you think this message is important, share this video with someone who needs to see it. So, why does this happen? Why do the cruelest torture methods so often fail to erase their victims and instead grant them immortality? It is because torture operates on a fundamental misunderstanding of power. The torturer believes that power lies in the ability to inflict pain on the body, but the martyr proves that true power lies in the resilience of the spirit. By enduring the unimaginable, by refusing to break, the victim performs a moral inversion. The torturer, with all his might, is revealed as weak, pathetic, and desperate. The victim, in their moment of ultimate powerlessness, becomes eternally powerful. Their story is retold, their image is painted, their bones become relics. Their pain is transformed into a symbol. The instrument of their torture becomes their badge of honor. The breaking wheel, the gridiron, the arrows, the flames, they are no longer just tools of death. They are the tools that forged immortality. The ultimate failure of cruelty is that it creates heroes. It tries to make a person into an object of fear, but instead, it makes them into an object of veneration. It tries to write a story of power, but instead it writes a story of courage that will be told forever. In the end, the most effective way to be remembered for all time is not to be the one holding the whip, but the one who endures it without breaking. If you found this exploration of the paradox of power enlightening, subscribe to Dark Chronicles. Our journey into the shadows of history is just beginning. Now that you've seen how torture can create saints, are you ready to see the most bizarre medical treatments that actually worked? Click here to watch our next investigation into the strange science of survival. Can true immortality only be achieved through suffering? We want to hear your philosophical take. The link is in the description.